Space and Rocket Review. You two girls, tell your friends. Space and Rocket Review. You in the hat. You in the chat. You with the cat. Tell your friends. Space and Rocket Review. What's going on, everybody? I am EJ, your host for this EJ Space and Rocket Review. And you know, my name's in the title, so like, it's probably good. All right, it is March 3rd, 2026, and I have a plethora of news for you. So, where do we start? How about we start here? Here's a view from Artemis's closeout crew approaching the big orange. Yep, that's music. Can't listen to that. They got some Lego figs on there. Oh. Hello. Bruh. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good video. Anyway, speaking of the big orange one, check this out. We got an update from NASA. So following the discovery of a helium flow issue with the Artemis 2 rocket, engineers have determined the issue and made repairs. NASA is prepping to roll the vehicle out to the launch pad in the coming weeks ahead of a potential launch in April. So SLS's ICPS helium valves are fixed. Should be good. Should be good now. That's a big deal. So that is what basically doomed the launch date. If that, guys, I mean, just food for thought. If that helium valve didn't stick, they'd be launching in 3 days. Now, unfortunately, it's going to take a little bit longer because my guess is that they're probably going to do another wet dress rehearsal just to make sure everything still works, swap out the seals or lack thereof. I'm going to go ahead and guess that they're probably going to have to do that again, but we'll see. This ain't no April Fool's joke, right? Nope. Set the date of April 1st. Tentatively, that is the date. So we'll see. We'll see where that takes us. Anyway, so that's good news. I'll keep you guys informed as we keep going. So check this out. Next thing here is from Jared Isaacman. So today we're launching NASA Force. We're launching NASA Force with USOPM, U.S. Office of Personnel Management. Returning to the moon requires restoring core competencies in our civil servant workforce. This program will recruit top aerospace, software systems, and other critical technical talent for approximately 2-year terms at NASA. This will strengthen in-house engineering excellence, close skill gaps, and deepen partnerships with industry. It's a workforce exchange program with industry. Oh, okay. 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 All right. I was going to say, what? Why would you do that? No one's going to work for you if they're only guaranteed 2 years. But yeah, it's a 2-year internship at NASA. Oh, that's cool. Ah, okay. I get it. I get it. I get it. I got more news for you there. You guys are going to love it. All right. So, next bit of news. Actually, that's Starship. I want to put that over here. So, you know what? Let's go right into, actually, you know what? Let's do that, and let's do that, and let's do that, and let's do that. All right, so check this out. Tory Bruno in his new job as the president of Blue National Security. posted this. He posted a picture of Blue Ring, a prototype Blue Ring, which it's a program that's at Blue Origin that is designed for what I don't know what's Blue Ring designed to do. I suppose the right way to say it would be a long range probe. It's basically a long range modular satellite bus. So you know you can modify one to like go to Mars and be a Mars reconnaissance orbiter, or you could take that same sat bus and you could modify it to go to Venus and be a Venus reconnaissance orbiter. Blue Origin is trying to think like a, you know, if you've seen The Empire Strikes Back in Star Wars, like Imperial probe droids, except they don't go down to the surface; they just loiter. It's basically, yeah, a big space tug. That's what it is. Like, I don't really have a better way to say that. Deep space satellite bus. Yeah. That's pretty cool. And yeah, Tori Bruno's posting some pretty sweet pictures of it. Yeah. That's on some kind of test stand. If I had to guess, that's a vibration test stand, but it's hard to say. It's also a FOD critical zone. No, I wouldn't say it's just another sat bus, Hellfish. This is what's the right way to say it? It kind of like an a la carte thing that you can buy if you're sending something to Mars, or you're sending something to Venus, or you're sending something to the belt or something. Yeah, commercial off the shelf component. So yeah, deep space sat bus, deep space a la carte, like modular sat bus would probably be the right way to say it. That's pretty cool. I dig it. The first New Glenn launch flew with a Blue Ring Pathfinder, which is basically just that structural piece that you said. What's Tori Bruno's job at Blue? He heads Blue Origin's National Security Division. So any Blue Origin technology that is in the application of defense, which is curious why he's posting pictures of Blue Ring, but also, who knows? Prepackaged customizable satellite. Yeah, basically. Blue Ring's pretty cool, but clearly there's a defense application here, and I'm not privy to it. Neither. I don't think anybody is. It's a small version of Simplex. Yeah, the small innovative missions for planetary exploration. Kind of, yeah. Yeah, that's the idea. But there's clearly a defense application for it, Aqualex, or else Tori Bruno wouldn't be talking about it, which is kind of... I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into that, dude. I don't know. Either way, pretty cool. More spaceflight hardware. Yeah, once again, I'd have to go read more about what I think Blue Ring does, because I'm not really 100% up to snuff on it, you know? Interceptor deployment platforms. Yeah, maybe. All right, so we got Axiom posted this. Axiom is working on commercial space stations for NASA, amongst other things. Let's see what they got. Of course, we can't listen to the music, but Axiom Space. Oh, that looks like a hatch. Yep. Tag it. Tag everything. These are the patents for the NDS. They're showing pictures of the docking port patent. Ooh. Here, there's no closed caption, so I'm going to disable sound for a moment to see if I can hear what he said. Well, here, translate it. That's Jonathan Morales. He's the hatch design lead engineer at Axiom. That's it. That's it. That's all they posted. Just the guy introduces himself and just some B-roll footage of the. This has got to be like a series or something. We're giving you a behind the scenes look at how we're building Axiom Space piece by piece. Tune in on Fridays. We delve into our hatch system. Okay, it's a teaser. Got it. Got it. Cool. Hey, Galactic Surfer, 55-month resub. We want more Axiom. The bid was only 42 seconds long. Yeah. Interesting. All right, well, that's good. So, a little bit of news coming out of Russia. We don't really cover much news out of there lately, but check this out. We got a little bit of an update. It's from Anatoly Zak. He's a Russian spaceflight journalist. He covers a lot of what the Russian space program is doing. He's saying that Roscosmos has released a few photos of the newly installed service platform at Site 31. Yeah, just as I suspected. They have the industrial base to build another one. Now, what are we looking at here? You're looking at the flame duct and trench for Soyuz's launch pad at Site 31. There is a gantry that slides underneath the rocket when the rocket is being installed onto the pad, and it has extendable service gantries. These things are actually telescopic. It actually compresses down and then moves up. It goes up and down. And it allows you to install the igniters amongst other things and all the umbilicals for Soyuz. Yes, they're still attached by hand. Most umbilicals are. SpaceX are the only ones that aren't. Anyway, so this service gantry, it's on rails. It's on this big platform, and that platform is on rails. And you can see that there's a huge on one side. What it's designed to do is roll, like if this is the rocket right here, it's underneath the rocket when the rocket is being maintained, like when it's being checked out, and then it rolls this way, and that plate is actually part of the flame diverter, right? That's underneath the Soyuz's pad. Because it's on rails, you have to put locking pins in so it doesn't roll, or else when the rocket fires, right, it's going to create a vacuum in the flame duct and it'll pull the thing out, and yeah, it'll pull the thing out into the flame trench and it'll fall off of its rails down into the flame trench. If you're not too privy to this, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, that is 100% what happened. The last time Soyuz launched, somebody didn't put the pins in because they didn't fit, so screw it, it'll be fine. And then it launched, and then it ejected itself into the flame trench. Yeah. Soyuz has been down since then. But everybody said, like, oh, that's the end of it. That's the end of it. No, I don't think so. They had the technical base to build a new one of these. They had a contractor that built these for Vostochny, which was relatively recent compared to how old Site 31 actually is. That pad's been around since the 70s. Launching Soyuz, which is pretty crazy. They had a spare. Yeah, everybody speculated, and it's funny because it was huge speculation, that they wouldn't be able to rebuild it. The reason why is that one right there, the one that ejected itself, was made in the Ukraine. I don't know if you guys are up to current events. Russia and Ukraine don't like each other right now. They haven't liked each other for about 4 years. Yeah, it's what happens when your country gets invaded. Yeah, you tend to not like the people that are doing it. Just putting it out there in case you needed an update on current events. So everybody speculated that thing wouldn't be, they wouldn't be able to rebuild it. But there was a industrial firm in Omsk, I think it was, that built Vostochny's pad, which is their eastern spaceport, that built that service gantry for that pad in 2018, I think. So like I said, relatively new. And they also had a spare left over. There was just another one sitting in Baikonur. So I'm guessing that the spare wasn't fully like completed. And they probably use that and a contractor or something to get the new one up and running. Yeah, see, there's the lockout pin. Yeah. And you can see it's very dusty because nobody put the thing in the thing. Sawyer had one job, put the pins in. Yep. So, like I said, they're judging by how this looks, that's most likely the spare, considering it's got rust all over it. And it's very dusty. Yeah, that's most likely the spare. Did they fix the whole pad? Because that thing has seen better days, if you remember. Probably not. Did they ever give an official cause? Yeah, the pins. There's a lockout pin. There it is. There's a lockout pin to make sure that that thing doesn't roll back down the rails. You can see the pin guard. It's in this picture. It's right there. I mean, keep in mind that thing's upside down because Soyuz launched and it rolled, and then when it rolled, it flipped over into the flame trench. So that's the front. That's the metal plate. That's see that this thing is the metal plate that's up at the front of the system. This thing. So the thing rolled out and then it flipped over, which is great. Pin failure or crew failure? I'm pretty sure schedule pressure drove that closeout procedure to be rushed, if I'm remembering correctly. So here, there's also some B-roll footage coming from Roscosmos here. They're installing, and that's a new igniter arm. Man, they're redoing a lot of that. Holy crap. There's the igniter arms. They must have gotten damaged. And there's the gantry down there. There's a guy stick welding. There's pieces of the gantry being installed. Holy crap, dude. Yep. So, you see what I mean, dudes? Look, some of these parts are brand new. Like, you could tell they're brand new because they're painted. But some of them aren't, which tells me that they fabricated some new parts. That firm that I was talking about fabricated some new parts, but they're also using what's left over. Because look, see, that part is brand new. That was just made. Either that or they painted it. I don't know. I'm just... Interesting thing here. I'm noticing, like, a lot of this is new, but a lot of it isn't. The main gantry on the service platform is not painted green. It's all kinds of poopy doopy colors. But dude, see these arms right here? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, well, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That one over there, that's not installed. Those are the igniter arms. Yeah, if just in case you're wondering how old school Soyuz is, Soyuz is very simple because part of its stakeholder expectations when it was derived from the R7 Semyorka, an ICBM, was that it was able to be simple and easy to launch. Part of that entailed with making the vehicle as like crazy simple as possible. So these igniter arms are part of that expectation there. And what do? Well, they start the engines. How do they start the engines with Soyuz? They stick a match up the nozzle and then turn on bleed valves. Yeah. And then the siphoning effect starts the turbopumps. Yeah. A match. They stick a match up the nozzle. That's what works. It's a good idea. Hey, old tricks are the best tricks, I guess. Yeah, these things, when Soyuz does launch, get forced down. They get forced into the retracted position like that. But it looks like they put new igniter arms in too, see? Yeah. Did they fix that hole in the pad? I don't know. The Russian stuff is just, it's very simple. It's very, 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 very simple. So like these truss structures right here at site 31, those are the hold down points. Now, Soyuz can't have hold down points down the bottom because that's where the igniter arms are. So, believe it or not, the hold down points actually hold the core stage. They hold the second stage, which is the center booster on a Soyuz. Soyuz has 4, right? It has 4 outer boosters, and then it has 1 in the center. The 4 outer boosters in Russian, how they do their naming is the 4 outer boosters are the first stage, and the center is the second stage. Kind of similar naming convention to like SLS almost. Like the second stage ignites with the rest of the vehicle, and then the third stage is on top, right? The whole thing is held up by the second stage, by the core stage, so to speak. And the interesting thing is that Soyuz isn't actually bolted to the pad. When the engines turn on and they generate more than 1.0 TWR, it just slips out of the launch pins. SLS does the same for what it's worth, but the Soyuz's hold down arms just have a counterweight on the end. They have a counterweight and then a hydraulic damper. So when Soyuz slips out of the launch mount, these things just fall back and they stay in position. It's just a big counterweight. Now, keep in mind, stuff like the SLS tail service mast umbilical, which we talked about a little bit earlier when we talked about SLS. Well, we didn't really talk about that. We talked about the helium valves, but you get the idea. Those are on counterweights too, but it's a counterweight on a pulley. So when the explosive bolts pop off, a counterweight falls down the TSMU and it'll pull the umbilical in before the door shuts. So yeah, very simple stuff. Also, I think they're using a Liebherr crane there. I think I saw a telescoping Liebherr crane. Yep, I did. Yeah, so they're not just redoing that gantry, they're redoing the igniter arms. Either that or those were the arms that were there already and they had to take them out so they could get all the pieces in. Yeah, see, there's the rails right there for the gantry, and this whole thing actually comes back this way. It looks cold there. It's Baikonur in winter. Yeah, of course it's cold. I wonder if they're going to put a failsafe on it this time. The failsafe is making sure the pin is installed. Yeah. Let's see. What does it say here? Site 31 at Baikonur. I'm not sure what that word says. That says Vostinovenia, I think. Repaired. Oh, very nice. I don't know what that says. I could probably, if I sat here and struggled for a long time, I could probably read it. I used to be better at this, but because we did it all the time, but not anymore. $17-ton pieces. Spooky robot. That one is the B, that BL. I forget what that letter is. Sputnik. That's getting the rocket ready for the Progress MS-33, which is the next, see, MS-33 right there. That's what this says. Progress MS-33 on Soyuz 21A. That says rockety. Neat. Well, like I said, because they had those contractors in, I was pretty sure they were going to get that fixed relatively quick. Everybody was trying to say, like, oh my gosh, they're so done. They're so done. Like, not really. Okay. Where's Yuri when we need him the most? Yeah, I know, right? Why does the Russian S look like a C? Because the Russian language is derived from Greek characters. Cyrillic is Eastern. Our languages are more Latin. It's actually, Cyrillic is like a combination of like a couple of different alphabets. But yeah, whatever. All right. So, Artemis, more Artemis news. Check this out. NASA strengthens Artemis, adds mission, refines overall architecture. So this is based off of what Jared Isaacman said. He had a press conference last Friday, basically revamping SLS's architecture to include more missions, but some type of standardized upper stage configuration that I could fly more indefinitely to get it to fly more. I'm not 100% sure like about this. Maybe this will clarify some things here. To achieve the goal of landing American astronauts on the surface of the moon and maintaining U.S. superiority in exploration and discovery, NASA announced February 27th that it is increasing its cadence of missions under the Artemis program, standardizing the Space Launch System rocket configuration and adding a new mission. The plans were shared during a news conference at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida and included an update on the near-term mission Artemis 2. This update focused on the transportation systems to take crew to the moon. NASA's latest architecture includes adding a new mission in 2027 to test capabilities closer to home prior to sending astronauts to the surface of the moon for the first time in more than 50 years. Oh, God, not this again. NASA's latest architecture includes adding a new mission in 2027 to test the system capabilities closer to home prior to sending astronauts to the surface of the moon for the first time in more than 50 years and aims to achieve one lunar mission per year thereafter. So you see that, chat? That's called a run-on sentence. Actually, it's not necessarily a run-on sentence. It's just, yeah. It's just hard to read. Standardizing SLS and other systems now will help NASA send astronauts to explore the lunar South Pole for the first time in 2028. That was not written to be spoken. Yep. Specific details to achieve this new proposal, as well as other architecture updates, are forthcoming as the agency remains focused on the Artemis 2 mission around the moon as early as April and reviews capabilities to support an increased mission cadence. Another tough. It's a cost plus sentence. I think the writer gets paid by the word. What NASA's planning on doing is very special. It's special because NASA is doing it. And NASA is actually going to be very special when they do this special thing. You get paid by the word, you know? People figured out that it looks like a Centaur 5 in the official renders tray. Yeah, exactly. Here are the basics for the first 5 missions under the Artemis program. Artemis 1, NASA successfully completed an uncrewed test flight of the SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft in November 2022. This mission tested launching the rocket for the first time using new exploration ground systems and evaluated Orion systems not including astronauts or critical life support systems planned on the next mission. Why are they making this so difficult to read? I'll get to that in a second article. Artemis 2. The test flight will be the first flight with crew aboard the SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft. Following a successful wet dress rehearsal in February, NASA discovered a helium flow issue to the interim cryogenic propulsion stage and rolled the rocket back to the VAB for repairs. This mission, we know that they fixed it. Crew members, including NASA astronauts Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen, will venture on a 10-day mission that will send them around the moon and back. Okay, cool. Artemis 3. Here's where the refactoring begins. NASA added a new demonstration mission in low Earth orbit in mid-2027 to test one or both commercial landers from SpaceX and Blue Origin, respectively. The mission will launch crew in Orion on top of the SLS rocket to test rendezvous and docking capabilities between Orion and private commercial spacecraft needed to land astronauts on the moon. This test will take place with one or both providers. Okay. 3 humans and a Canadian. Yep. Artemis 4. NASA continues to target the first Artemis lunar landing in early 2028, which has been the target landing date since mid-2025. After launch, crew will transfer from Orion to a commercial lunar lander for transportation to the surface of the moon. Lander readiness will determine which provider will safely carry them to the surface and back to Orion in lunar orbit before the crew return home aboard Orion, splashing down safely in the Pacific Ocean. Work to standardize the SLS rocket will be implemented for Artemis 4. With this architectural approach, NASA is assessing alternative options for the second stage of the rocket. The interim cryogenic propulsion stage used for the first 3 missions will be replaced with a new second stage. And the agency is no longer planning to use the exploration upper stage or mobile launcher as development for both has faced delays. Okay. Artemis 5. Using the standardized configuration of the SLS rocket, NASA anticipates launching this lunar surface mission by late 2020. Okay, late 2028, and future missions about once per year thereafter. This mission also is when NASA is expected to begin building its moon base. NASA continues to refine its architectural plans, and the agency will share more information about its approach to lunar exploration and crew assignment in the future. As part of a golden age of innovation and exploration, NASA will send Artemis astronauts on increasingly difficult... Yeah, okay, all right, whatever. We know they're difficult. We get it. Now, okay, so what's the good and what's the bad here? The good is ramping up SLS's flight cadence. That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good solution. We're going to need to. You can't explore the moon going once every 3 years. That's not how that works at all. I don't necessarily mind a standardized, Block 1 architecture either. I don't necessarily mind it. But guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. Getting rid of the EUS and ML2 is a really bad idea. That's not a good decision. I don't want. So if you go back and watch my reaction to the press conference, I was amazed, but I was amazed because of the increased flight cadence. I don't want an increased flight cadence at the behest of ML2 and the EUS. I don't think that's a good idea. Now, why? Why is that a bad idea? Well, okay, look. NASA's building a new mobile launcher. So what is that? A mobile launcher is the thing that it's the launch pad. It's the launch pad for the rocket. Now, here, let's take a look. With NASA's architecture for heavy lift, okay? They have, so the gray structure here. This gray structure is a giant platform with the launch, with this thing on the side. That thing's called a LUT or LUT. That's the launch umbilical tower. Now, this whole thing gets picked up and moved, right, to 39B. 39B uses what's called a clean pad configuration, meaning that the whole launch pad and service tower gets picked up by the crawler transporter and moves. Now, this one right here, the one that you're seeing, is Mobile Launcher 2. That's a render of Mobile Launcher 2 out at the pad. Mobile Launcher 2 was designed to launch SLS with this thing up here. See, there's a white interstage right here. And this thing it's called a Universal Stage Adapter, a USA for short. And then you have Orion on the top. The idea here is that this mobile launcher is designed to handle the heavier loads involved with having a bigger upper stage and a bigger... so this Universal Stage Adapter here is basically a payload bay for SLS. It'll separate, or it was supposed to separate into 4 segments, and then Orion could be payload for Orion. It could turn around, dock to it, and pull it. Just basically like Apollo, very similar. You could put a lander in there, in this version if you wanted to. Now, with all that being said, they don't want to use this version of SLS, and they don't want to use this mobile launcher. I don't like that. That's not a good idea. It's not a good idea because you're basically consigning SLS just to be a vehicle to move people out to the moon, and that's about it. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea for long-term space flight decisions. Also, that mobile launcher 2 cost $1 billion to freaking make, and it's made. It's already done. It's built. It's built. It's there. It's finished. I know the guy that installed the umbilicals on it. It's done. It's not under construction. They're finishing all the little knickknacks to put the thing together. So, I mean, I guess if you want to argue that that's under construction, you could. The point is that money's already spent, and that launcher is brand new. Now, here's the big thing. The reason why Mobile Launcher 2 costs a pretty penny, it was supposed to be a $300 million contract, but it was cost plus, and it ballooned to over $1 billion. Why? Why did it balloon to over $1 billion? Why did that happen? Well, that happened, one, because that's what happens when you do a cost plus contract with no clear scheduling milestones or anything, and a company just goes, oh yeah, that thing that cost me $20 to do, now it's $100 to do it. That has a lot to do with it. A company called Bechtel is the prime contractor. They're a heavy industrial contractor. They build nuclear power plants and stuff. Now, here's the thing, okay? Bechtel got a lot of crap for that thing taking a long time. Schedule delays, like what the article says. But there's a caveat to this. Look, the caveat, SLS is heavy. That's the short story. SLS is extremely heavy. Mobile Launcher 1, which is the launcher that SLS uses right now, the one that we've seen roll to and from the pad, that is the X-Ares 1 mobile launcher. Ares 1 is a significantly lighter vehicle than SLS. SLS has problems. The mobile launcher can't carry the damn thing. It can't carry it. It bends. That whole mobile launcher is actually kind of bending. And it's been reinforced, sure. But the whole reason why you would want to build mobile launcher 2 is to deal with the weight problems. SLS is a heavy freaking rocket. There's 2 5-segment boosters on each side. Okay, each one of those booster segments is 250 tons. Each segment, there's 5 on each. That's 2,500. Yeah, well, yeah, 2,500 tons of booster amongst anything else, right? On top of like one of the biggest rockets NASA's ever or would have ever made. Now, this mobile launcher, if you look, is built in a completely different way. It's totally different. It's not built in any way, shape, or form like the Mobile Launcher 1. It's not using I-beams. It uses tube stock, heavy tube stock, to be able to handle the extra weight. Now, another thing to be said, though, about this, right? The mobile launcher also had to be super light. The reason why is because the crawler transporter, the thing that moves the whole damn thing back and forth, has an upper level weight limit of 16 million pounds. Well, guess what? The rocket's already 8 million of that. So Bechtel basically got a poop sandwich of a contract. NASA basically set them up to fail. I'll be honest, like I'd go so far as to say that they set them up to fail pretty badly, actually. They had to build the lightest mobile launcher and the strongest mobile launcher to hold NASA's rocket that was ridiculously heavy, right? And it's basically eating up half of your transport margin here. So that mobile launcher has to be the lightest and the strongest thing that they've ever made. That's the reason why it ended up costing over $1 billion. Because you're not just making a copy of another mobile launcher. You're not just making a copy of ML1. You copy ML1's design, this one's going to break too. So it's not entirely Bechtel's fault that this contract ballooned to ridiculous proportions. Now, with that all being said, the thing is finished. It's done. They're just... Here, let's go to Space Coast Live. Let's look at Space Coast Live. My buddy's over at NSF. They do not have a picture of it right now. Let's see if we can get, see if we can scrub back and just look at a relatively live shot. I think they're just looking at Starship's pad. Yeah, okay. So this is a shot from earlier in the day. See it over there? There it is. It's finished. There's the Gigabay. Holy crap, they're making progress on that thing. But see it over there? See all the scaffolding on it? It's finished. All the umbilicals are basically installed. You're pretty much good to go, which kind of sucks, right? Now, like, look, here's the thing. Is the mobile launcher behind? Yeah. Is it way behind? Is the EUS way behind? Yes. I've read several accountability reports about how the EUS has basically been in development since 2014, and they have not completed one full fidelity test article. Now, that was mostly program management and inexperience in upper stage building. But I mean, well, that is a pretty strong demerit. I mean, what the hell have you guys been doing for 15 years? It's really, you'd be wondering, what the hell are you doing, right? How do you design an upper stage for a rocket that doesn't exist? Right? This is all this ML2 and the EUS and everything is for a version of SLS called Block 1B. Block 1B doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. How are you going to do that? Yeah, and underfunding the program too. Can ML2 be modified for Block 1? Yeah, of course it can. But it's finished for Block 1B, Joe. That's the thing. It's finished. Now, you're missing it. NASA isn't using ML2. You know Ken. You know who Ken, the Department of Defense. Remember, SLS, if it's launching DoD payloads, will need a cargo mobile launcher for special payloads. Yeah, but Trey, you don't know that for sure. I mean, I've heard whispers of that, but you don't know that that's what's going to happen. So, yeah, personally, I think that's a big mistake. If it was me, I do agree with Jared Isaacman in that increasing the launch cadence of SLS is a very good idea. Standardizing it around some type of upper stage that isn't the ICPS, but is still a low energy upper stage is a really bad idea. That's not a good idea. That's so here's my argument. NASA has released renders with what looks like a Centaur 5 on top of SLS. Centaur 5 is ULA's upper stage for Vulcan. It's a good upper stage. It really is. But it's a good upper stage for a heavy launch vehicle, not a super heavy launch vehicle that's going to send things out to the moon. Standardizing SLS in the Block 1 configuration is basically relegating SLS to be able to move people to the moon, and that's it. No cargo, no nothing. Now, you could make the argument that that is the only way to increase flight cadence, sure. But you're going to re-baseline the entire thing. You're going to re-baseline your entire thing for a new upper stage to standardize the configuration. Why didn't you just do that with the EUS? Why didn't we just do that with the exploration upper stage? Unless we somehow don't think that that's tenable, right? That's where I'm getting a little confused, right? Now, another important thing for me to mention is that I hate the EUS. I think it's a gigantic heaping pile of crap for an upper stage for a super heavy launch vehicle, just like the ICPS is. I seriously want to go back 15 years ago, get a time machine DeLorean, go back and slap the people that came up with this architecture because it's atrociously bad. Now what am I comparing it to? Compared to the Saturn V, it sucks. It's awful. Like, just horrible. Just horrible architecture. Why is that? Well, the EUS, well, it is very, 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 very efficient using hydrogen. You have RL10s, 4 RL10s in the upper stage. Really good, crazy high amounts of delta V. Does not have the required TWR in my mind to be able to move stuff out to the moon expediently. Because RL10s are super efficient, but they don't make a lot of thrust, right? That's bad when you have people with a finite amount of oxygen up on board. They need to be able to get out to the moon so they can get down to the moon so they can get back up and get back home before they run out of air. So if you're going to explore the moon with people, you need something that has some scoot, that has some get up and go. You need high thrust to weight ratio. The EUS doesn't have that. It's atrociously bad for a human rated upper stage, for a human exploration upper stage. Yeah, it's atrociously bad for it. Now, a better solution would be something like the S4B from the Saturn V. Just a little bit of comparison here. The EUS and the S4B are kind of similar in size and weight, but the EUS has 4 RL10 engines on it that make 400 kilonewtons of thrust. The S4B has 1 J2 engine on it, simple, way simpler, that makes 1,000 kilonewtons of thrust. That's the type of thing that you need to get out to the moon fast. The Saturn V upper stage had two and a half times almost the thrust here. Actually, it is 2.5 times. Now, so yeah, I hate the EUS. I think it's junk. I really don't like it. Now, with all that being said, I would rather that than a Centaur 5 every day of the week. Centaur 5 is anemic compared to the EUS, which is, yeah, I don't like that at all. Couldn't a low thrust to weight ratio second stage cause a ballistic reentry in case something goes wrong? Because the first stages must lob the thing very high for the low thrust engine to be able to reach orbit. Yeah, but yeah, exactly. You don't want low thrust to weight ratio when people are on board, Lava, ever. I mean, you don't want too high a thrust to weight ratio either, because if you have too high a thrust to weight ratio, you liquefy the people inside. That would mean the mission would fail. Like, just saying, as bad as a ballistic reentry, right? Can Centaur get Orion into low lunar? No, not even close. Unless some type of boil-off technology is designed. Now, for what it's worth, Pigzig, neither can the EUS. Now, to sum it up, guys, Do I hate the EUS? Yes, I hate it. I don't like it. It's a terrible upper stage. This thing needs something like New Glenn's second stage on top of it. However, I will go kick whoever I have to in the face, to get that thing working. I'd rather have that than a standardized Centaur. I just don't understand why you would want to standardize around a Centaur 5. That is a very peculiar decision. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why not standardize the 1B configuration starting with Artemis 4? I don't Hey, but Ojo, 15-month resub. I don't really understand this move in that regard. I do agree with ramping up SLS's flight cadence, but I think, yeah, like I said, that is really dumb to do if it requires redesigning the upper stage. And if it requires redesigning your upper stage, why don't you just ramp up the upper stage that's already being made? Now, you can't do that with the ICPS for what it's worth, because the ICPS is X Delta 4 tech, and the Delta 4 production line dried up a long time ago. So that's off the table. You can't do that. Yeah, this is I don't agree with this. I don't agree with that part. And guys, like, I love Rook. I think he's been doing a good job, but I think that people are whispering in his ear that don't really understand what it means for this. The worry here the worry here is that if you, with this standardized Block 1B configuration and supposedly increased flight cadence, right, relegating SLS just being able to move people to and from is basically hindering NASA's future capabilities. They won't be able to move anything else out there except for 4 astronauts in the Orion. That basically forces commercial landers as your long-term solution. Now, that kind of was the case already, right? But you could achieve that same result and also reserve the capability with the EUS of bringing your own landers to the surface. I think it very much shows where Jared Isaacman's kind of mind is with this. And the idea seems to be to pivot to commercial. And I'm not sure I'm okay with this. I do love the increased flight cadence, but you should increase the flight cadence with the EUS. I don't. Can a New Glenn upper stage fit on SLS? Sure, it could. You would need to refactor a lot of things, Ordon, but you'd already need to do that if you're like, the amount of changes that you'd need to make are very similar to it, like a Centaur 5, right? The Centaur 5, you're gonna need to go and re-engineer, like redo all the analysis on the entire vehicle with Centaur 5 up there. And you're going to need to do the same thing with the EUS. You need to do the same thing with actually, you don't need to do the same thing with the EUS because the EUS analysis has already been done. Because they've had 15 years. They got something done. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm okay with this. Perhaps they could standardize to a Falcon upper stage. That has a 981 kilonewton Merlin vacuum on it. No, 3LRD, no. Stop putting heavy launch vehicle upper stages on top of your super heavy launch vehicle upper stage. Stop that. Take that idea, take it out back, and old yeller that idea. That's dumb. That is any stage, any off-the-shelf stage here that it doesn't have some type of super heavy launch architecture with it is you're cutting NASA's hand off, basically, or one of their hands at least. Yeah, yeah, that's it, dudes. I hate the EUS, but I'll take that every day of the week over an ICPS or a Centaur 5. I think that's terrible. That's a terrible solution. That's not going to ramp up SLS. I mean, it might. Maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe, but that's not going to make things go faster any more than just pushing for the EUS sooner. Um I only suggested it as a similar thrust to the J2. Yeah, 3LRD, that's great, but the stage can't handle those loads. It's not just. I mean, it might be able to handle it. Who knows? But yeah, the whole point is, I mean, it's Carolox, so you don't have the delta V that you're looking for. It has the thrust, but it doesn't have the delta V. So I'm hearing we should put Starship on top of SLS. No, I think NASA should just develop the upper stage that they need to be able to land independently on the moon with their own lander. Now, I know what people are going to say. People are going to look at me and say, that's a dumb idea. They have the commercial landers. I don't want a corporation being in the way from NASA being able to get people and supplies to and from their lunar base. I think commercial is great to supplement your lunar logistics, but it shouldn't be your primary pathway. I think that's a very bad idea. I've thought that that's a bad idea for over 10 years, Ruin. I mean, that's not a good way to do things because, you know, someone's going to come along and just get rid of this. Oh, you don't need the EUS. Why do you need that? The commercial landers will do all of it for you. I think something happened in the background. As you say, it makes no sense to can an existing developed upper stage and launcher without a really good reason. Fox, here's the thing. I think that Jared Isaacman has ideas that differ from mine. Obviously, like, I mean, what do my ideas count for? Nothing. I'm not the NASA administrator. But also at the same time, I do believe that NASA should be able to have their own capability that is redundant to commercial capability. I.e., if SpaceX or Blue Origin can put somebody on the moon, NASA needs to be able to put somebody on the moon. Yeah, this architecture is basically giving SLS an off-ramp, which, yeah, this basically makes SLS useless if Starship or Blue Origin or anybody, if Blue has a way to get from the surface of the Earth to the surface of the moon and back, and SpaceX does, we already know SpaceX's architecture with Starship and Starship HLS, which I'm not saying don't do that. That's a good idea, right? If Starship gets a human rating, SLS standardized block 1 is useless. It's useless. There's no point in making it anymore. And I think that this standardized block 1 configuration to increase flight cadence is basically road mapping SLS to give it an off-ramp to be replaced by commercial, which I don't necessarily agree with. I mean, is there any doubt that commercial will achieve high flight cadence to the moon? Well, if Elon gets his way, sure, absolutely. Yeah. But also at the same time, the EUS and this Block 1B version of SLS with Mobile Launcher 1 will very, very, very much supplement that and make it better. You can make it better. You have the opportunity to have more capability on the moon rather than less. And yeah, I think that, Jared Isaacman doing this and basically giving NASA an off ramp from SLS in probably the next 10 years is that's, it doesn't make much sense because, he's talking about how NASA's skills have atrophied and how we have to bring stuff in house, etc., etc. Okay, that's great. You're bringing all this capability in-house. That's fine. That's awesome. You're bringing all this capability in-house to do what exactly? To build upper stages? To build nuclear transport vehicles? How are you getting those up into space? Nuclear certifying a commercial provider is not something that the DOE does lightly. I'm just saying. It's only like 1 or 2 vehicles that are capable of carrying nuclear payloads into space. Can you see why that's heavily regulated? Nuclear payloads into space, that's... You think they're just going to hand one out to SpaceX like candy? That is incredibly naive. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not... I don't know. I don't... Like... Guys, the time to cancel Block 1B and the time to cancel the EUS was like 10 years ago. Or actually, I would say 5 years ago. 2021 was the time to do that if you wanted to do that. This is not... You're too far into this program now. Stuff's made. Stuff's already built. The launch pad's already done. That's a really bad idea. Yeah, no, you do not cancel stuff that's already where fabrication of hardware is already started. That is an incredibly bad idea. That never, ever, ever leads to cost saving. Ever. I mean, you could make the argument that canceling the program leads to cost savings, but if we're talking about cost savings versus capability, this is an epic failure. Yeah, I'm like hung on this, dude. I'm 50-50 on it. 1, it's great to ramp up SLS flight cadence, but 2, it's not to the behest of the long-term architecture of the program. I think that's really dumb, unless somebody was thinking about redoing the entire architecture of the program, in which case, pony up. That's not going to be cheap. Hey, Peace Boy, 30-month resub. My alerter is not working. Aqualux, overall, you fully agree with me. Okay, but here it comes. If we're going to go commercial for the second stage, it wouldn't be that bad of a refractor to put a GS2 on top of SLS. At least it's the same propellant, and the diameter is 7 meters to 8.4. Yeah, Aqualux, yeah, okay. It probably wouldn't be that hard to put the SLS avionics into it either. You're falling into the fallacy of sunk cost. It's not sunk cost if it exists, Spoiled. That is stupid. Look, we're not talking about buying a boat or buying a yacht here. We're talking about spaceflight hardware, okay? Look, that mobile launcher's done. The STA for the EUS is already completed. Well, parts of it are already completed. Should they have gone faster? Yes. Could they have gone faster? Hard to say. This stuff is not plug and play, guys. Like, now, Aqualux, I would have been cool with them canceling the EUS if a New Glenn upper stage was going to replace it. Sure, that's fine. Canceling it for a Centaur 5 is dumb. Yeah, there it is. That's dumb. That's the first decision that Jared has made where I'm just like, nope, I don't like that. Everything else has been pretty good. Everything else has been great. That's not a good idea. I will tell you that right now. That's not a good idea. You shouldn't have done that. Yeah, if anything, you should have kicked them in the pants to go faster. Because you talk about NASA atrophying. Yeah, well, canceling programs that NASA is working on is not going to help with that atrophy. I would argue, Spoiled, that sunk cost doesn't really apply to NASA. Especially if the rocket works. And SLS does work. We know it works. Artemis 1, it works. It's not sunk cost fallacy, because sunk cost fallacy implies you're a business making a profit. NASA does not. Now, once again, fellas, you could make the argument that SLS has done nothing. You know, and it's a sunk cost because it's done nothing. Like, we're supposed to be going to the moon here. Like, if you started the Apollo program and you started the SLS program at the same time, the Apollo program would almost be done at this point. 6 landings on the moon. And we've launched once and gotten near it. Now, should you have a problem with that? Yes, absolutely. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But I would argue that that's a programmatic problem. Once again, that's a management problem. That's not the architecture. It's not the program. That's not sunk cost, dude. Sunk cost would be no launches up until this point. Sunk cost doesn't only apply to businesses. I mean, okay, I'll play into what you're saying. By that logic, every program that NASA has done is a sunk cost, is subject to sunk cost fallacy. The Apollo program included. No, that's not right. That is not correct at all. That would say that the shuttle was sunk cost fallacy, the Apollo program was sunk cost fallacy. All of it was, because we never will recoup we never recoup the price it took to develop the Saturn V. We definitely didn't launch the Saturn V enough to justify the $2 billion in the 60s that we spent on it. We only launched it to the moon, 8 times? That's not worth it for $2 billion. That's a sunk cost in itself. Reminder what I said yesterday about the whole thing about 1A and 1B core stage avionics. Boeing was already starting the retooling for 1B without avionics, as the core avionics would go onto the EUS. Depending on whether they go with the EUS, Center 5 or GS2, whatever else has effects on the core stages. Yeah, this is a bad idea, Deadbringer. Yeah, where are you getting all that avionics stuff from, by the way? What's your source for that? Just out of curiosity. Saturn V was sunk cost. Most of it's at the bottom of the ocean. Yeah. Oh. Okay. SLS, Space Launch System Avionics, the brains of it. Oh, boy. Counterpoint. Centaur 5 would be used in the near future. Maybe NASA will use New Glenn stage later on, but not for now, because Blue hasn't ramped up yet, and we'll need upcoming stages for Blue Moon. What do you think? I would have included that in my press announcement, Marcon, but yeah, maybe not. Here's where I stand, dude. We'll talk about contingencies into the future here. If they replace the EUS with a New Glenn upper stage or a New Glenn third stage, or I don't know, anything, some high energy, high thrust upper stage, I won't have a problem with canceling the EUS. I don't like the EUS, but I hate the ICPS. Whoever thought that was a good idea needs to be kicked in the face. Like, it's very rare that I invoke violence like this, but that was like, whoever looked at this on paper and said, yes, an SLS upper stage, we should put a Delta IV derived upper stage on it to save money and time. No, that person needs to be slapped. They did not, that person does not live in objective reality. Yeah. Yeah, that's the truth there. Hey, Chris, what's going on? So, it was me. I decided that. No, it wasn't, Nova. This is not. Just we'll just joke about it. Just joke about it. It's only the NASA's future. Whatever. Yeah. So I don't know. Long story short, I do appreciate the SLS increase in launch cadence, or the proposed SLS increase in launch cadence. That's not going to happen if you're redesigning for another upper stage. That's not going to happen at all. And making more changes in your architecture at this point as you move to production is only going to cost money and time. That's it. So unless NASA's getting a huge budget increase to fix this stuff, yeah, that's Let's just hope that the next NASA authorization bill has a significant budget increase. The U.S. being vaporware, what is the solution? The U.S. isn't vaporware, Gaw. I thought it was when Rook made that announcement, but it's not. They're working on the structural test. Well, they were working on the structural test article right now. The LOX tank for the STA is pretty much made. The hydrogen tank just needs to be welded together. And then the thrust structure, that stupid box, we saw that already. I don't know why they didn't tell us this. Honestly, the silence there is what got the stupid program canceled in my mind. Now, God, here's the other thing. Okay, so this is point counterpoint here. I like to look at it from all angles. It helps me figure out what's going on. The counterpoint here is that you wouldn't have been able to ramp up EUS for the increased launch cadence. That's the counterpoint. And I think there is some truth to that, to be honest with you. Would using GS2 for the upper stage make them beholden to a commercial provider? No. When I say beholden to a commercial provider, Rarest, I'm talking about them. It specifically refers to the operations of the vehicle. If NASA wants to buy new Glenn Stage 2 articles wholesale and throw them on top of SLS and NASA operates the vehicle, that's no different than core stage procurement. I don't have a problem with that. That's fine with me. It's just NASA needs to operate it. Right? I would say it makes sense for the purposes of racing China. Standardizing SLS now doesn't mean they can't refactor later on. Also, are they actually canceling EUS and ML2? Yeah. Well, this NASA press release right here, I don't know, you be the judge. The interim cryogenic propulsion stage used for the first 3 missions will be replaced with a new second stage, and the agency is no longer planning to use the exploration upper stage or mobile launcher 2 as development of both has faced delays. Yeah, Chris, that's been my argument this entire time. I've hated SLS Block 1 basically since I first read about it. It's like taking Falcon Heavy and putting a Falcon 1 upper stage on top of it. It's just useless. Yeah, as development of both has faced delays. That's, Nope, don't like that. Rev, there ain't no way you're getting a new upper stage on it in 2 years. Rev, honest question. Do you think they could get the EUS up there in 2 years? Honest question. The only goal is to meet the vanity deadline. Beyond that, it's all going to depend on commercial providers. NASA will no longer be NASA as we know it. Yeah, multiplanetary. This basically gives NASA an off-ramp from SLS, and I'm not sure I agree with that, because commercial is not your end-all, be-all solution to the fact that NASA can't manage a program correctly. That's not great. How much did ML2 cost again? Wasn't it $1 billion? Yes. Chris, it's going to sound ridiculous, especially coming from me. I understand why it costs $1 billion. Most launch pads for super heavy launch vehicles are expensive. With that all being said, okay, let's do some math out here, right? Usually, launch pads are way heavier than the rockets that launch them, right? Right? I think that's a fair assessment. The transporter erector weighs way more than Falcon 9, right? Fair assessment, right? Like, that's a fair thing to say, right? The crawler transporter that is used, CT2, that is used to move SLS to and from the VAB and 39B, that has an upper weight limit of about 16 million pounds. SLS Block 1B would be pushing over 8 million pounds. Do the math. Crawler transporter has 16 million pound limit. Rocket weighs 8. Actually, a little over 8 in the 1B configuration. Your launch pad, the mobile launcher, the reason why that thing ended up costing so much freaking money is because the mobile launcher had to be as light as the stupid rocket. Bechtel had to basically build the strongest, lightest mobile launcher ever devised. It's almost a spaceship in itself. That's why it costs $1 billion. Now, is Bechtel known for milking contracts? Yes, absolutely. Was there a component of this involved there? Oh, yeah, probably. Most likely. But physics is inalienable. There's no way the crawler transporter could move that thing unless they made a mobile launcher weigh less than 8 million pounds, which is a very, very difficult thing to do. Mobile launcher 1 is way heavier than that. Think about it, dude. There's a reason why that costs a lot of money. Could you attach the SRBs at the pad to reduce travel weight? No. The SRBs are what's touching the pad. The core stage doesn't touch the launch deck. Your 8 hold down points are on your SRBs in this architecture. I'm just trying to understand the angle where we get there by 28, because the alternative is Jared's boss is pissed. Why would he do that? I don't know. Guys, in Jared's defense, now, once again, I don't agree with this decision. I don't think that that's the wisest decision. But in Jared's defense, there might not be a better one. Seriously, what do you do? What would you do in this situation? If you look at it from that point of view, that tells me that the EUS is not going to be ready in time. Not a chance. Artemis 3 was tentatively scheduled for 2028. The EUS on Artemis 4 was scheduled for like 2029, 2030. You could make the argument that it's not that it's faced delays up until this point, like what NASA says, is that it's not going to be ready. See you, third. I don't know what that link is, but you need perms from the moderators to post links. Did Bechtel not know the weight of the rocket in the beginning? No, I would argue that NASA didn't know the weight of the rocket in the beginning, because how do you know how much a rocket's going to weigh before it's made? Once again, terrible architecture. Yeah, and when will a stage that has to be modified and redesigned to work with SLS be ready? Not going to be in 2028. Mm-hmm. NASA changed the specs a lot of times, yeah. I don't know, man. What I'm trying to do, fellas, is I'm trying to rack my brain here. What would you do in his shoes? My mind is saying the hell with SLS Block 1. The hell with it. Launch Artemis 2, be done with it. Throw that other upper stage in the trash. Start retooling for Block 1B with Artemis as soon as possible so you could standardize it and get a good baseline. That's probably what I would do. Um, I've been very vocal about doing that for 10 years, dudes. Freaking 10 years, a decade. I hate Block 1B. I think it's an anemic upper stage. I think it really hinders the capability of the core stage and the SRBs. And look, man, if we're gonna dump shuttle engines into the frigging ocean, with the core stage, at least make it worth it. At least make it worth freaking while, dude. Show that thing could flex its muscles, you know? Dojo, what are you saying? So we know very well that SLS has many technical and economic flaws. I would say more economic than anything. And in a few years, it will also have functional flaws compared to the competition. Not if you ramp up. So I'm going to ask a provocative question. Should NASA design a new launch vehicle for the future that is competitive, quick to build, capable of flying frequently, reusable, and complete the scheduled Artemis missions? Abandoning SLS. Well, the argument there, the thing there, Bodojo, is that should you do that? Probably. Could you do that right now? Yeah, but you'd basically kiss the moon in this decade goodbye. This stuff takes time, dudes. Belly Joe, hey, 5-month resub. What's up? I think NASA administrator is just trying to get done what his boss told him to. Agreed. What I don't get is why even fly the ICPS on Artemis 3? Core and boosters have plenty enough to get an Orion CSM into Leo with an AJ-10. Put a dummy second stage on Artemis 3 and use the ICPS to Artemis 4, giving time for a proper new upper stage. Rev, that's a really good idea. I would do that. Yeah, that's a good call. Just put a mass simulator up there. Do you think Rook is pushing too much? No. I think he's pushing the right amount. But Chris, this is not going to get us back to the moon any faster. I really I'm racking my mind, dude. Rev, what you said was the best idea that I've heard here. Jared also said the architecture for later SLSs would be different. So 3LRD, where did he say that? If you can get me a source on that, that'd be really good to hear, because that would help. I mean, because that was my theory that I put on Flame Trench. My theory is that they've taken the EUS out of the early Artemis missions. I don't necessarily mind that. Right? I don't necessarily mind that. I think that's a good idea. But what Rev said is, I think, is the best idea. Just for Artemis 3, if it's a low Earth orbit demonstration, just put a dummy upper stage up there and send Orion into low Earth orbit, save the other ICPS, use the 2 ICPSs for Artemis 4 and Artemis 3 and Artemis 4, get back to the moon, then re-baseline for Block 1B. That's a really good idea. That's probably what I would have done, Rev. That's a good call. He said that in a press conference. So maybe they're not shelving the EUS. Let me read what that thing says again. The ICPS used for the first 3 missions will be replaced with a new second stage, and the agency is no longer planning to use the EUS or ML2 as development has faced delays. Yeah, that just tells me that they're getting rid of it. You believe that Jared's predecessors messed up the situation. Rook is trying to get something done with the inherited mess. Every administrator since Charlie Bolden has been inheriting a mess. Bill and Jim both inherited a poop sandwich of a lunar exploration program. The problem is, well, like I said, the architecture. This architecture is stupid. We'd be further in space if we had Constellation, but I'm not going to go down that road. They probably put some type of deorbit hardware in that dummy stage. No. SLS launches into an eccentric suborbital trajectory for the core stage. You could just eject Orion from the core stage and use the SPS for your circularization, which it has plenty of delta V to do. With the mess that is Boeing, the U.S. may be in development hell. That's my theory. There's no other reason to get rid of it other than the fact that the U.S. might just be a gigantic heaping pile of crap of a program. And we've heard the Government Accountability Office say that. There's been plenty of GAO reports saying that the EUS program is god-awful and it's not getting anything done. You missed Constellation yet? I think about this every day, Julia. Yeah. Yeah, Badojo, that's really what gets me. You spent all this money to build ML2 for Block 1B, and you're just not going to use it. That's it. You're not even going to rebaseline. Your rebaseline thing is not going to use ML2? What are you, nuts? You're just going to leave it there? Like, that's it? Is Centaur any better? Centaur, you'll get a little bit more performance out of it, Chris. It'll be able to fling a little bit more out to the moon than the ICPS, just because Centaur has about double the fuel and about double the thrust. It's not a bad idea, but once again, you're just limiting it to Orion. That's it. It's just Orion. That's all. It does the same thing. So you get all this extra performance for what? To move the same capsule. We don't think about Rome every day, but the space program. Yeah, I think about the space program more than I think about the Roman Empire, that's for sure. I know it's a dirty word, but what do you think about nationalizing the EUS and building it in-house as per Isaacman's stated goals? He might be doing that, Aqualux. It's possible. I feel like there's a ton more information that we're not seeing behind all of this. I really don't think they would get rid of ML2 and the EUS. Guys, I'll say what I said on Flame Trench. I really honestly and truly think that, look, where I'm at, you would not make this decision unless the EUS was not a viable pathway to the moon by 2028. You would not do this. This is a really stupid idea if the EUS is not going to be ready in time. Right? Think about it. Seriously, noodle on it. They must have looked at the EUS, that program must be so ridiculously screwed up that they looked at it, they said, there's no way this is getting done by 2028. There's no way. So what's the solution? Actually, I think Rev's idea is the best solution. The dummy upper stage is the best idea. But where are you going to get a dummy upper stage? But then again, you're just going to low Earth orbit. Just build it out of freaking steel and call it a day. Then why won't they say that? They didn't. I don't know. Maybe they're worried about pissing people off. I mean, to be fair, Hellfish, Jared didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. He dodged questions about the EUS basically at every corner. Dodge questions about the ICPS, dodge questions about the upper stage. So, I don't know. Hard to say. Bring the Boeing guys working on it into NASA in that 2-year exchange program and make it his pet project. I mean, maybe they switch it to nuclear power or something, and maybe that's the pet project. Isn't ML2 projected to 2029? That's too late. Yeah, but Marcon, it's easier to speed up a program or to try and speed up a program than it is to cancel it and try and replace it with something else. In fact, every time we've done that under the guise of time, it's ended up taking way longer. We replaced the Saturn V with the space shuttle because it was supposed to be quicker. It was supposed to be able to offset the costs of going back to the moon, right? It was supposed to be less expensive because it was supposed to fly more because reusability. It failed on literally every single one of those metrics. So what was the point? It would have been just better to keep flying the Saturn V. Probably would have been cheaper too. Nuclear upper stage in-house replacement. Trey, if he did that, I'd be fine with this. Look, dude, honestly, replacing the EUS with anything, literally anything except for a off-the-shelf stage, replacing it with the Earth departure stage or a New Glenn upper stage or a nuclear-powered EUS with no oxidizer tank, just a hydrogen tank and a nuke engine behind it. I'd be cool with that. I am not cool with replacing it with nothing. I am not cool with replacing it with a Centaur 5. That's dumb. That's really stupid. Like, I would say this to Rook's face. I don't think that's a good idea. How much of the shuttle in Saturn was built in-house? None of it. NASA operated the vehicle. It was built by contractors. It's operations is the difference between public and private, Geeson. That's an important thing to understand. Everything is built by the commercial industry. NASA doesn't do anything in-house, not nearly as much. They did more during the Apollo program than they do now. The launch pads were built in-house. Launch pads were contracted out. No, they were all contracted out. It's the operations of the stuff that makes the difference. Do we know how many GS2s are currently made? I don't know. I'm guessing a lot. I'm guessing there's probably a lot in the pipeline because there has to be at least 6 in the pipeline or else Blue is in some deep trouble right now. I don't disagree with you. Just trying to see the reasoning from Rook. All I can think of is that we are dropping everything else to focus on the race with China. We do the minimum necessary to land on the moon. And that's great as an interim solution, but interim solution after interim solution is the reason why we're in the position that we're in, Marcon. That's an important thing to understand. Centaur 5 is a temporary replacement until the nuclear engine is ready. Yeah, but Rook doesn't like nuclear engines. He wants nuclear electric for some reason, and I don't... All right. Oh yeah, rocket science? That's good to know. Like I said, there needs to be at least 6 in the pipe where Blue's got a big problem. I don't know, maybe. Who knows? Anyway, yeah, I think this has been talked about good enough. Look, we'll just sum it up with this. I'm not sure that standardized Block 1B architecture with Centaur is going to get us faster to the moon, any faster to the moon than just going with the EUS. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not, unless Jared can pull a rabbit out of his hat. We'll see. Unless he can do something incredible. And that is kind of his shtick, so maybe. It's possible. Maybe. But replacing the EUS with another off-the-shelf solution is going to work about as good as, saying let's use a Delta IV upper stage on there so we have time to develop the new upper stage. That it's going to work about as well as that did. And where did that get us? That got us with a rocket that has launched once in 15 years of development. These interim solutions aren't a good idea. Getting rid of the EUS and replacing it with another anemic upper stage is a really bad idea. That's not a great thing to do. However, increasing the flight cadence is good. Now, with that all being said, canceling the EUS in favor of something better, now we're talking. Now we're talking. But that remains to be seen if that's going to happen. If that does happen, you'll know, because I'll be talking about it. Anyway. You guys want Here, let's see. What else do we got? I got a couple more things. We have Starship stuff here, so let's go see what Starship's up to. We got some pictures from RGV here. There's a picture. Second pad is looking pretty damn good. The ASU is also, wow, man, they're moving real quick. By the way, the Flight Easy EUS was slated to start being welded up in a couple months. I know. Hellfish, I agree with you. You don't need to keep saying it. I agree with you that getting rid of it is a dumb idea. Like, even if it wasn't ready by 2028, no, fix it. Don't just divest at the first sign of trouble. Like, that's a bitch move, dude. Like, excuse my language. But anyway, so we're pad 2 is looking pretty dang good. I don't see a lot of scaffolding left on that dang thing. Once again, this is RGV Aerial's picture. RGV Aerial Photography, they do amazing freaking pictures. That thing is looking pretty damn finished. I'm not seeing a lot of scaffolding around here. And man, does that thing look nice. Yeah, Aqualix, I suppose. If that's what you want to do, I don't have a problem with that. SLS with an NEP upper stage, I'm good with that, dude. That's fine with me. You better not dispose of the damn thing. It better not be expendable, or else I'm going to kick somebody in the junk really hard with my damn steel-toed boot. But the damn thing better be reusable if you're doing that. Am I right? Only scaffolding left is on one corner of the top deck. Yeah, that's the other picture that you sent me. There it is. Oh, dude, she's looking real good. No, not in Minecraft. Not in Minecraft, Bob. Nope. Nope. Look, I've had it with these people. I've had it with people that, I mean, Rook's decision, let's see. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because I don't think he's doing a bad job per se. We'll see if that deserves a kick in the crotch. I'll let you know about that in about 2 years. Does that mean a static fire's incoming? Yes. I would say that's pretty close. Elon said that Starship's going to fly soon. Sooner rather than later. I would guess at this point probably April. It's going to fly on the same day that Artemis 2 does, guys. You know this, right? Like that's when it's going to do it. It's going to fly then. Kick them hard enough that they taste rubber. Yeah. 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 You better believe this steel toe is reusable. Right. It's going to be 420 again. Yeah. When do I think Flight 12 will launch? Elon said 6 weeks ago, 6 weeks, 1 week ago, one man. Yeah, I would say that that's probably right. No, I don't care about notifications. Get off my screen. That's not making Windows better. That's making it worse. I would say probably somewhere over here. 2nd or 3rd week of April. Probably there. That's my guess. I mean, that's pending. That is taking into account that all the testing is going to go correctly. So, we'll see. Also, in this RGV picture, it's important to note that they have doubled the size of the pad complex. You guys can see right here that, look at all the grading that's being done out there. The pad used to be just this. And they have doubled the size of the complex. You can see where the barriers are. What are the odds of a 420 launch? 1 in 365. What? You asked for the odds. It's going to launch on some day, and it's going to launch this year. Now, guys, take a look. They've already started doing the pilings for the trench for the first pad. Look at that, man. Look at that. Odds would be lower. We're already in the third month. That's a good point. Let's say 1 in 272. Even better. Okay, perfect. 272. How many days are we into the year? I took a guess. So 265 minus 272. $93 days. What's the 93rd day of this year? Oh, I was right! Oh, get fricked, math! Ha ha! Boom, 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 boom. Yes! That's awesome! Get fricked, math! Get on my freaking level! Yes! It is the 93rd day of the year. That's so funny, dude. Oh my goodness. Yes! Proof for it didn't happen? Bro, there's your freaking proof right there. There's your damn pillow. Look at that. Oh. Oh. God damn, that feels good. Damn, it feels good to be a streamer. Could be a financial year. Will you shut up? We're 93 days in? Yeah. Is the ASU working? I don't think the ASU is finished, but yeah, it's gonna take some time. But that thing is looking pretty damn close. Considering considering Flight 11, guys, when Flight 11 launched, that was nothing. That was Dunes. That Flight 11 wasn't that long ago. That was what, November? That was 5 months ago. If only your accountant was that good at math. Yeah, there was nothing there when Flight 11 launched. It was just cordoned off, and that's about it. Let's see. There's the Danger Dune. Danger Dune is right there. That's Danger Dune. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, see, they're doing all the grading here to fill in the wetlands. Cool. Cool. Flight 11 was October 13th. 1 year after Flight 5. October, so, okay. That would have been 6 months ago, but still. Hey, where's Trailer? Is Trailer in this picture? Hold on. Trailer should be, like, right here. Where's Trailer? Hello? It's not there. Unless that's it right there, but I can't really tell. Huh. Oh, no, it's right there. No, I don't know. I don't know if that is Trailer. It might be. Where's Jacqueline? There it is! Where's Jacqueline? Dude, I cannot tell you how many times I freaking got stuck in the mud in this freaking place, dude. Yeah, there's Starhopper. I've walked under that thing, dude. It's pretty sweet. If you're interested, I found where Jared said the architecture for Artemis would change over time. 4530 on the February 27th conference. Okay, 3LRD. I believe you. Thank you for going and looking. I believe you if you tell me, dude. That could mean a lot of different things, though. But yeah, that's good to know. Did you lick Hopper? No, I hugged it, but we couldn't take pictures. I was too busy. Too busy. What? Anyway. Okay, so check this out. You guys want to see something interesting? Look at this next article here. This one's coming from Eric Berger. He wrote this yesterday. Former NASA chief turned ULA lobbyist seeks law to limit SpaceX funding. Well, it's not limit. The nomenclature doesn't say limit SpaceX funding, but whatever. So, a former NASA administrator says he's encouraged that U.S. Congress is considering legislation. So listen to this, guys, as if the SLS stuff didn't piss you off enough. Look. Legislation to prevent NASA from spending more than 50% of its launch funding on any single provider. America's success in space when America succeeds in space. Sorry, I can't read. That's me. America succeeds in space when American companies compete, innovate, and grow, said former Administrator Jim Bridenstine, which he wrote on LinkedIn. I'm encouraged to see Congress taking meaningful steps to strengthen the industrial base that underpins both our civil and national security space missions. Bridenstine commended the chairman of the Senate Commerce on Commerce Science and Transportation from Texas and ranking member from Washington on a new provision that appears in the NASA Transition Authorization Act of 2025. Cruz plans to hold a markup hearing for the legislation on Wednesday. Congress is reinforcing competition and protecting the small and medium-sized manufacturers, propulsion companies, avionics developers, and suppliers that make up the backbone of America's space enterprise. Competition lowers costs, accelerates innovation, and provides redundancy. Okay. The provision appears to target SpaceX, which currently launches the only crewed vehicle capable of reaching the space station, Dragon. Both U.S. cargo vehicles, Dragon and Cygnus, as well as a majority of NASA's science missions. If passed into law, this language could effectively prohibit SpaceX from launching crewed lunar missions from Earth on Dragon or Starship for NASA in addition to its existing portfolio. What Bridenstine did not say on social media is that his consulting firm, the Artemis Group, netted almost $1 million from United Launch Alliance in 2025, according to public record. This was nearly a third of all revenue raised by his lobbying last year, a total of $3.385 million. ULA was formerly a major competitor to SpaceX. What a dick. Nice. ULA was formerly a major competitor to SpaceX in the U.S. launch industry. I love the sass. That's actually pretty funny. The Senate's provision here's the important part. The Senate's provision targets launch revenues but excludes space transportation services, such as human landers being developed by SpaceX and Blue Origin. Another former NASA official, Phil McAllister, replied to Bridenstine's post that it was disappointing to see him attach his name to the provision. Instead of promoting competition, McAllister said the new language is actually anti-competitive. What it supports is using the political process to funnel money to favored companies with inferior products, said McAllister, who directed commercial space at NASA from 2005 to 2024. Competition is a full and open match between companies where the best company wins. If this legislation passes as is, it ensures that the best company will not win. Instead, the second or third place company will get an award because they could not compete and win fairly. And the country will see that superior performance does not win, having the best lobbyist does. Yep, pretty much agreed on all counts. Yep. McAllister and other critics of the provision say no one wants a launch monopoly and that NASA has sought to on-ramp new providers through programs such as its Venture Class Services program that allocates payloads to riskier providers. However, they note that as United Launch Alliance has struggled to bring its Vulcan rocket online over the past 5 years, SpaceX has stepped up to keep the International Space Station flying and to launch critical missions like NASA's $4 billion Europa Clipper spacecraft.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Worst 2 minutes. 40-month resub. What's up, man? Ironically, United Launch Alliance held a U.S. launch monopoly earlier this century before SpaceX came along and disrupted its business with lower cost, more frequent access to space. Now United Launch Alliance must not only compete with SpaceX, but a newer generation of more nimble companies building reusable rockets, including Blue Origin, Rocket Lab Relativity, Firefly, and Stoke. NASA has made it clear that these companies that it is eager to buy launch services at competitive prices from them. Europa Cripper. Yeah, Lalopa Lipper. Yeah, that's what I said. A highly regarded administrator. Oh, I would like to add that something interesting, guys. See all those companies, Blue, Rocket Lab, Relativity, Firefly, and Stoke? None of those companies showed up on the lobby for the Artemis group. A prime contractor for the Artemis program for landers did not show up for the Artemis group's lobbying effort. Highly regarded administrator. Former House member from Oklahoma, Bridenstine served a generally well-regarded term as NASA administrator from April 2018 to January 2021 during the current president's first term. The high point of his tenure in office came in May 2020 thanks to SpaceX, the DM2 mission. That summer, with the Crew Dragon vehicle, SpaceX and NASA successfully flew 2 astronauts to the ISS, breaking America's dependence on Russia for low Earth orbit transportation. Bridenstine relished this with an oft-repeated mantra of launching American rockets with American astronauts on American soil. I did it backwards, but anyway. However, after leaving NASA, Bridenstine has appeared to become hostile to the dominant company founded by Elon Musk. He joined the board of a competitor, Viasat. I like to call Viasat Viasuck, because, you know, their SAT service is terrible. Every time I use Viasat on an airplane, it never works right, ever. It's always slow. Later, Bridenstine became the executive of government operations for United Launch Alliance, while his firm also collected a hefty lobbying fee. All of this is not particularly abnormal for the revolving door, and I don't care about your views on partisan nonsense. Okay, let's go. Attacking his own process. Bridenstine sharply criticized this lander decision during testimony. Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, we should read this. Yeah, we should read this. All of this is not particularly abnormal for the revolving door in Washington, where senior officials go between government positions and industry. Nevertheless, some observers were surprised by the striking nature of Bridenstine's attack on NASA for the decision to award the Human Landing System contract to SpaceX in April of 2021, 3 months after he left office. A new administrator had not yet been confirmed at NASA at the time, so a senior NASA engineer, Steve Jurczyk, rest in peace, served as acting administrator for the space agency. Yeah, Steve passed away, unfortunately. That's a shame. Anyway, Bridenstine sharply criticized this lander decision during testimony last September. There was a moment in time when we had no NASA administrator. It was after I was gone and before Senator Nelson became the NASA administrator and architecture was selected. And I don't know how this happens, but the biggest decision in the history of NASA, at least since I've been paying attention, the biggest decision happened in the absence of a NASA administrator. And that decision was, instead of buying a moon lander, we're going to buy a big rocket. I would argue that they were already doing that. That big orange thing that's inside of the VAB is already that, but you know, whatever. Yeah, Steve Jurczyk was cool, man. Mm-hmm. He was referring to Starship and the plan to use the vehicle as a lunar lander. Almost everyone in the space industry agrees that Starship offers a cumbersome solution to get 2 humans to the lunar surface, especially if that goal is to do so as quickly as possible rather than building a sustainable transport system over time. However, Bridenstine's criticism of its selection process omitted some key facts. SpaceX was the cheapest by far. I already know what this says. He oversaw the initial selection of Starship as one of 3 options for a lunar lander in April of 2020. He made the appointment of Kathy Lueders as head of human exploration in June of 2020, knowing she would be the source selection official for the lunar lander contract. In Lueders' Kathy Lueders ended up selecting one company with a proposal that fit within the NASA budget allocation for a lunar lander that Bridenstine had obtained from Congress. That's right. The reality is that Bridenstine was the architect of the Artemis program. He obtained its budget from Congress. He wanted the human lander to be a commercial partnership, and the team he put in place made the final decision. The implication that Jurczyk was effectively not a real administrator capable of making the right decisions is unfortunate, as Jurczyk is not alive to defend himself. He passed away. Yep. However, Bridenstine's comments are in line with the criticism of NASA leadership in 2021 by United Launch Alliance, which characterized it as incompetent and unpredictable in leaked emails. Yeah, guys, here's the thing. I think, honestly, I was going to say what I think, but Phil McAllister said exactly. This is exactly, I couldn't have said that better, so I'm just going to repeat what he said. What this supports is using the political process to funnel money to favored companies with inferior products. Competition is a full and open match between companies where the best company wins. If this legislation passes as is, it ensures that the best company will not win. Instead, a second or third place company will get an award because they could not compete and win fairly. And the country will see that superior performance does not win, but having the best lobbyist does. Yep. Yep, that's pretty much it. Yeah, so this contract basically says that 50% of NASA's launch budget can only go to one provider. I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again, because we were playing Factorio when I said it. But the honest to God truth here is that, look, if there was 1 to 2 launch providers, right? If there was ULA and SpaceX and that was it for the commercial market, if this was 2014, this contract would make pretty good sense. The Air Force and the Space Force do this all the time. Well, the Space Force does this. They split contracts. Now, I would like to add that the Space Force does not split stuff 50-50. It's usually 60-40. It depends on what lane it's in Space Force nomenclature. It depends on how crazy emissions are we flying, right? No, they never split stuff 50-50. It's always 60-40. There's always a preferred provider. Always. Somebody that's going to get paid more to basically tailor their rocket to work with the Air Force or the Space Force. In the NSSL Phase 1, Lane 1 contract, 60% of it went to ULA and 40% went to SpaceX. Interestingly enough. Now, once again, this only makes sense if it's 2014 and there's 2 launch providers. But there's Blue, there's Relativity, there's Firefly, there's Stoke, right? There's Rocket Lab. There's all these other providers with all these launch vehicles that are coming online that are more than capable of being competitive to Falcon 9 and doing some of these, at least venture class NASA missions, right? Abso-freaking-lutely. So it doesn't make sense when there's like 10 providers that can all provide launch services for NASA, where there's a competitive commercial market. This makes no sense. It's the opposite of competition, which is really funny because, nowadays, you can, in this day and age, you could say that I hate mushrooms, right? And, people be like, you hate mushrooms? Then why are you eating them? Well, because I actually hate them. I hate eating them. It's really terrible for me. I hate mushrooms, but I hate them because I said I hate them, so I must hate them. Like you could just say one thing and do the other, and sycophants out there are like, yeah, yeah. I don't mind mushrooms. Mushrooms are fine. I don't go around eating them for what it's worth. No, not those mushrooms. I'm talking about like putting mushrooms on pizza or something. Mushrooms on pizza aren't bad. The mushroom makes the cheese super gooey, which is... Now I'm hungry and it's a fasting day. Texture, no thing. That's fair. Totally fair. Totally fair. I understand the 50%. If I understand the 50% cap correctly, if one company can launch 1 times per year and another can launch 100 per year, the second company can only launch 1 times 2, so they don't go over 50. No, it's 50% of total allocated launch contract costs. So if NASA has 5 missions, right, that are worth 10 billion a pop, and 1 mission worth 50 billion a pop, you could give 5 to SpaceX and 1 to ULA, and that would be okay. In fact, that's probably what's going to happen. That's probably going to be what's going to happen, to be honest with you. You don't understand. I dislike mushrooms, but I have a huge stake in mushroom coin, so I have to eat them to keep the value high. I'll buy that Lambo, I swear. Yeah, put 47 Lamborghinis in your Lamborghini account. Zach, I know we're making fun of those people. Like, I get it. Yeah, and we are making fun of them. They deserve to be made fun of. I'm sorry. They probably make fun of us, too, right? Like, but also, is it bad if, like, that I just find that behavior like very boring. I'm bored. Like, okay. You know, I was hanging out with some friends, and one of my friends became a crypto bro, and I'm just like, buddy was telling me about his crypto that's going to be the crypto that's going to be the crypto that ends all cryptos, and I should invest in it. And I'm just sitting there zoning the frick out. I'm just like, I wonder what belt comes after blue belts in Factorio. Like, I'm just bored. Just bored of that. I'm just bored of that behavior. It's just so boring. Like, it's just boring, dude. Can we talk about like engines or something, or like jets, or like literally anything else? You have one of those friends. I was just like, brother, I don't. All I could think was like, should we tell him? Should we tell him? We shouldn't tell him. You should make his last day good. You know, like. Please don't talk about F-15s or F-14s right now. No, I wanted to talk about F4. Oh, I don't want to talk about those either, guitars. Damn. Guitars, did you watch the I watched the footage. I watched the footage and it bums me out, but I watched it, but it's just... Can I have one? Can I have one of those? Friendly fire is a real thing, one man.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Could have negotiated for the... We could have negotiated for the... Actually, to be honest, dude, their F-14s or F-14As, those things are... F-14As are steaming piles of garbage. There, I said it. They're terrible. F-14D is where it's at. And we scrapped all of those, so... Mint. F-14As are actually horrible. Yeah, they're the export version for a reason. For what it's worth, one of my coworker buddies left the Hill because the crypto lobby tripled his salary. Even if you hate it, you got to respect it for the cash alone. Yeah. No, you can like crypto. It's the behavior that's boring, dude. I love watching my tax dollars shoot my grandpa's tax dollars. Yeah, I know. It's great. Yeah, those F-14As were just retrofitted with like they hot rodded those F-14As with like MiGs, and they're caca. The F-14A was already a pile of crap. Go and read if you guys are interested. You want to go on a little bit of a plane thing. There's a reason why they introduced the F-14B and C like really quick, because Grumman made the F-14A and said, "Oh, you're perfect. Oh, what a piece of trash this is. Holy crap. If we're not... Oh, we should... Yeah, we got to fix that." Yeah, F-14A's was bad. It's just bad. It's really bad. Do we know the mass and the specific impulse of the new nuclear engine NASA's working on? No, we don't. That's the Draco program. I don't even know if that program's still around, Lava. I have no idea. The F-14A still had good radar. Yeah. I believe the F-14A is a downward... Or, no, is it a side scanning radar? It's a side scanning. Why was the F-14A bad? Marcon, it's the same reason that any new version of any aerospace thing is bad. It's just... Yeah. Sometimes you build it and it doesn't do what you want it to do. I thought Draco was canceled, Zelensho. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, the F-14As were not there. I believe, you know what? I got to look it up. I forget why they were bad, but I know they're trash. Yeah, it's the TF-30s. The engines were dookie. Yeah, the F-14A rolled out with TF-30s out of the gates, and those are not... TF-30s are not... That's not a fighter jet engine. Yeah, they replaced it with an F-110. Yeah, that's... Yeah. Yeah, they were underpowered. They were really bad. Like the one that you see in Top Gun is an F-14B. It has 110s in it. Actually no, March of '87 for the F-14B. Oh God, they were using an F-14A. No wonder they were losing dogfights to A4s. Just saying. Oh, that snort, dude. Look at that snort, man. That's awesome. Yeah, the F-14 Delta is way better. The one that by the end of the program, holy, yeah, see, that's the IRIAF. Those things are caca. They're an F-14A. They're junk. Compared to what we ended up with, like, and see, all the ones, see, that's the thing. All the ones that are in the museums, they're all F-14As because we junked all the F-14Ds, except for one. The one that's at Intrepid. The Intrepid Sierra and Space Museum. That's an F-14D. That's the F-14D. That was the prototype. Yeah. That's the Intrepid that DOS, Kids Week, that Elysia works at. Go to Intrepid. That is the F-14D. That's the prototype. That's one of the only F-14 Deltas in existence. We scrapped every single one of them because we didn't want them getting it. Right, so here's some numbers. The U.S. upper stage with Orion gives 6.5 kilometers a second to Delta V. Using data from NERVA, 841 specific impulse with the same volume of LH2 as the whole EUS volume gives you 4,900 meters a second. If the same specific impulse was kept, reaching the same Delta V as the EUS would actually require an engine with negative mass. Yeah. Are there any F-14Ds in the boneyard? There's 6. I've counted. Yeah, it was the TF-30. They don't perform very well. They're just poo-poo. Doo-doo caca poo-poo. See, like, this was the thing by the end of the program. That's the F-14D. That thing is fantastic. Real fast. Real fast. We could have had F-14Es. Navy didn't want them. The Navy didn't want... Yeah, they were Grumman... Well, it wasn't Grumman. Northrop Grumman proposed the Super Tomcat. Yeah. and they lost to the Super Hornet program. The reason why is maintenance time. F-14s are a pain in the butt to maintain because they got more moving parts than a Hornet. Yeah, TF-30. Let me look at the stats on a TF-30. Just do a quick plane review here. TF-30. Oh. Yeah. These later versions aren't bad. So Top Gun 2 got it right. It was an F-14A. Yep. Also, the F-14 takes up a lot of deck space. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, the Eisenhower. Very nice. Oh yeah, the black market parts paid a lot into it, Aqualux. But yeah, it was the maintenance time that got it, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm pretty sure that was your driving thing, but there was more than one. I mean, honestly, as much as I want to see a Super Tomcat, the Super Hornet, I would have chosen that. It's way simpler. You know? Yeah, the TF-30s were, yeah, not the best for that big of a fighter. I mean, granted, they're on an F-111, and F-111, the F-111's pretty big, but yeah. Yeah, the F-14 is a friggin' looker, dude. I love that plane. It's not my favorite plane of all time from this era. But then, I don't know. Do you rope the F-4 in with this era? I would say the F-14 is from the later parts of the Cold War. And the F-4 is from the mid, like the mid beginning of the Cold War, you know? Does that mean Rook can have an F-14 now? Yeah, I don't know. The F-14 replaced the F-4, I believe, in its in the carrier role. Yeah. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I wish they picked the YF-23. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, little bit of Av Geek stuff in there. But yeah, that's what the heck is this? This just popped up in my feed. Tim Farmer did some resto footage. What is this? A Lockheed R6V. What are we looking at here? That does not look like fun. Oh, please level out. Are those? Yep. Okay. This thing's going to go really fast here in a second. Oh, that's NAS Alameda. Cool. Wow. How old is this damn footage? Guys, I'm not trying to be a dick. That's like this close from crashing. That's like super close. Dude, you don't know how close that is to exploding. Like, that's not how you approach a runway, homie. Woof. Cool looking plane, though. Lockheed. Is that what that said? 1946 Lockheed R6V Constitution was the largest fixed-wing aircraft ever operated by the U.S. Navy. It had a 189-foot wingspan. Only 2 prototypes flew. It was also tested with JATOs. Oh, it's got our 4360s on it. Yeah. Hey, I like to catch on fire. Oh, yeah? Yeah. That's an objectively terrible approach. That's like, bro, what are you doing? Oh, my goodness. Anyway. Cool. All right, that's going to do it for Space News. We are going to go back to part 17 for Factorio here, and we're going to build some spaceships in Factorio, or at least try to. That's the objective. We have all fronts secured in Factorio. We're going to have to, on Novice, we're going to have to see if we can build a spaceship and see if we can get it going somewhere. Anyway, thank you for watching the Space and Rocket Review. Stay tuned. If you're on Twitch, just stay here. We'll switch over to Factorio real quick. On YouTube, you will see a momentary loss of signal. And yeah, I'll see you in a little bit. Thank you very much for watching.